Good morning. This is Miss Kay, and I'm going to start with a song that I've been singing to children for such a long time. Good morning, I hope you're well today. The sun is shining, the sky is blue, the flowers are sparkling just like you. Good morning, I hope you're well today. Have a nice day. Yesterday we started our story time, and yesterday we had the story about Harry the dirty dog. I've written that out so you can see it very clearly. Some of you couldn't see it very clearly yesterday. Now, I asked for books, and look how many books I got. Wow! I have lots of stories to read. Some of them were very old ones, like this one that I got. Oh, this has been someone's very special book. And this one, let me turn the page, is the tale of Peter Rabbit, and I was just colouring it. And I thought if you look at it very well, you might draw one and send it to me. Let me tell you the story. We've got to make sure you can see the pictures. Is that okay? This is the tale of Peter Rabbit by Beatrix Potter. I know a lot of you will have pictures of Peter Rabbit. There was once even a movie about it, and I saw it. But here's Peter Rabbit with his mummy. Here's a little drawing. Perhaps you could try one just like that. Once upon a time, there were 4 little bunnies, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother in a sandbank underneath the root of a big fir tree. "Now, my dears," said old Mrs. Rabbit one morning, "you may go out into the fields or down the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an accident there, and he was put into a pie by Mrs. McGregor." You see, they're all listening, and here's Peter. Is he listening? Now run along and don't get into any trouble, because I am going out. Then old Mrs. Rabbit took a basket and her umbrella and went through the woods to the baker's, and she bought a loaf of brown bread and 5 currant buns. Oh, I love currant buns. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, went down the lane to gather blackberries. But Peter, who was a very naughty little bunny, he ran straight away to Mr. McGregor's garden, and he squeezed under the gate. First, he ate some lettuce and some French beans, gobble, 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 gobble. And then he ate some radishes. Crunch, 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 crunch. And then, feeling rather sick, he went to look for some parsley. That makes your stomach calm. But round the end of the cucumber frame, who should be there but Mr. McGregor? Uh-oh. Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees planting out young cabbages, but he jumped up and he ran after Peter, waving his rake and calling, "Stop, thief!" Look how he's running with his shoes and his coat, and there's Mr. McGregor with his rake. Peter was most dreadfully frightened. He rushed over the garden, for he had forgotten the very back of the gate. He had lost one of his shoes amongst the cabbages and the other shoe amongst the potatoes. Oh dear. After losing them, he ran on 4 legs, went faster and faster, so that I think he might have got away altogether if he'd not, unfortunately, ran into a gooseberry net, and he got caught by the large buttons on his jacket. Uh-oh. It was a blue jacket with brass buttons, quite new. Oh, poor old Peter Rabbit. Peter gave himself up for lost, and he shed big tears. But his sobs were heard by some very friendly sparrows who flew to him in great excitement and implored him to, "Oh, exert yourself. That means get up, Peter." Mr. McGregor came up with a sieve, which he tried to pop over the top of Peter. But Peter wiggled out of his coat, leaving his right behind, and he ran. And he rushed into the tool shed and jumped into a can. It would have been very safe, but the can was full of water, so much water in it. Mr. McGregor was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in the tool shed, perhaps hidden underneath a flower pot. He began to turn them over carefully, looking under each. Presently, Peter sneezed. Shoo! Mr. McGregor was after him in no time, and he tried to put his foot on Peter Rabbit, who jumped out of a window, upsetting 3 plants. The window was too small for Mr. McGregor, and he was tired of running after Peter. He went back to his work. Peter sat down to rest. He was out of breath, and he was trembling with fright, and he had not the least idea which way to go. Also, he was very damp with sitting in that can. After a time, he began to wander about, going limpety-limp, limpety-limp, not very fast, and looking around. He found a door in a wall, but it was locked, and there was no room for a little fat rabbit to squeeze underneath. An old mouse was running in and out over the stone doorway and carrying peas and beans for her family in the wood. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but she had such large peas in her mouth that she couldn't even answer. She only shook her head at him. Peter began to cry. Then he tried to find the way straight across the garden, but he became more and more puzzled. Presently, he came to a pond where Mr. McGregor filled his water cans. A white cat was staring at some goldfish. She sat very, very still, but now and then the tip of her tail whished as if it were alive. Peter thought it best not to go away without speaking to her. He'd heard about cats from his cousin, little Benjamin Bunny. He went towards the tool shed, but suddenly, quite close to him, he heard the noise of a hoe. Scratch, 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 scratch. Peter scuttered underneath the bushes, but presently, as nothing happened, he came out and climbed upon a wheelbarrow and peeped over. The first thing he saw was Mr. McGregor hoeing onions. His back was turned towards Peter, and beyond him was the gate. Where's the gate? Let me see the gate. Oh, there it is, look. Oh, I think I need my glasses for that one. Peter got down very quietly off the wheelbarrow and started running as fast as he could go along a straight wall behind some blackcurrant bushes. Mr. McGregor caught sight of him at the corner, but Peter didn't care. He slipped underneath the gate and was safe at last in the wood outside the garden. Mr. McGregor hung his little coat and his shoes as a scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds. Peter never stopped running or looked behind him till he got home to the big fir tree. He was so tired that he flopped down upon the nice soft sand on the floor of the rabbit hole and shut his eyes. His mother was busy cooking, and she wondered what he had done with his clothes. It was the second little jacket and pair of shoes that Peter had lost in a fortnight. That's in 2 weeks. I'm sorry to say that Peter was not very well during the evening. His mother put him to bed and made some chamomile tea, and she gave a dose of it to Peter. 1 tablespoon to be taken at bedtime. But Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail had bread and milk and blackberries for supper. The end. What a lovely story, the tale of Peter Rabbit. Could you draw Peter Rabbit? I know easy ways to draw rabbits. Let me show you. I have lots of markers. I love markers. First of all, an easy rabbit is a nice circle for his head. Then we draw a nice oval for his body. And we put 1 floppy ear there, and 1 floppy ear there, and we put a nose like a little triangle, and whoop, whoop, and 1 eye here, and 1 eye there, and 1 paw there, and 1 there, and 1 leg there, and 1 leg there. The only thing that we can't do when we draw it like that is a little. Okay, send them to me. I would love that. Have a lovely day. Perhaps we'll do another story tomorrow.